All right, welcome into How About Wow, Cowboys fans. 40-37, Cowboys survive. Are you more encouraged or is concerned? Holy cow, did that defense look bad in the fourth quarter? Take it away, Jimmy.
The only thing else I got to say is, how about them Cowboys?
All right, I'm Gavin Dawson from the G-Bag Nation. Joining me, as always, to talk football is the former all-academic SEC lineman at Kentucky, Newbear Lesniewski. How the heck you doing, buddy?
Hanging tough, man. Just battling through like overtime. That was awesome.
Yeah. There you go. All right. Please like the video if you enjoy the show at any time. It really helps us grow. I tell you what, I'll buy you a beer next time I see it if you've ever liked a video here on How About Wow. And leave a comment right now. What's your overall takeaway from this Cowboys victory? You want to start with some fun? I do. Because I'll tell you what, one of the most encouraging things yesterday happened post-game with Shoddy handing out post-game awards and everything and going through some of the highlights. But I'll tell you the best thing here, look at Jerry Jones, dude. Jerry Jones in this situation, he is a passenger on the Shoddy train instead of a guy establishing that this is his locker room. And I don't think this is a storyline that we can overlook here with the Cowboys. Can Shoddy maintain authority and autonomy? And I think this post-game hype session was a good step in that direction. Here we go.
Touchdown! Yeah! Javonte on a touchdown! Yeah! Miles Sanders on a touchdown! Yeah! Woo! Pickens on a touchdown! Yeah! 51-yard field goal! Yeah! 44-yard field goal! Yeah! 64-yard field goal! Yeah! Wait, in overtime, with the walk-off, 46 yards!
He did it, man. I love it. I love when a coach does fun things like this in the post game. I think it's great for the vibes. It's great for the sign, and there's no doubt they're not style pointing this victory inside New Bear. They're all excited and moving on here at 1-1, getting ready for Chicago.
What do they always talk about? How there's always stuff to work on. Like you almost never play a perfect game. It's a lot better to do it on the winning side.
Yeah,
and I mean, even just think about how different it feels. Last week, like we were calling it the best loss ever. It's still a loss. You can talk about how close you came, how good you played. You still didn't do enough. And the one thing that you have to take away from this game is that in the end, right, history is going to be kind to me, for I intend to write it. Winners write history. Nobody looks back and says, look at this error, look at this strikeout, look at this fumble. If you win the Super Bowl, you're a champion forever. And that's all people really focus on.
Yeah, there's going to be close wins. I think it's fair to look inside of victory and say, wow, this has got to be better. This has got to be better. But, throughout the course of a season, I think the Chiefs won 9 one-score games last year. Washington won 8 of them, and it allowed them to, make very deep runs. And ultimately, as long as this defense gets better as it gets healthy, I think we'll move on from this game and say, yeah, this is the game where Trayvon Diggs was still not even close to 100%, maybe playing at 80%. Deron Bland is out. Revel is injured. Like, you got major concerns in your secondary right now, but this was such an outlier as far as what we've been used to with this Cowboys team when healthy, that I think you kind of chalk it up to a Russell Wilson vintage game where he threw 3 of the most unbelievable touchdown passes that anybody's going to throw all year in the NFL. And sometimes you have to accept that big plays are going to happen, and you just bust your ass to make sure they don't happen again. But let's get it going. More concerned or more encouraged? Leave a comment down below. I think there's things we can really be excited about. Dak Prescott was unbelievable. They don't win a lot of games when he's got to pass it more than 35 times. He passed it 52 times, 361 yards. Javonte Williams, the 18 rushes for 97 yards, once again getting better as the game went on. CeeDee Lamb, 11 targets, caught 9 of them. Jake Ferguson, 12 targets, caught 9 of them. There were still some drops, but catching 75 or 80% of the balls thrown at you, that's huge. And then George Pickens took a big step in the right direction, having some clutch plays to extend drives, and the big touchdown there in the fourth quarter to I thought that was the game-winning touchdown, but the defense had other plans.
Yeah, don't forget the pass interference. It doesn't show up in the counting stats, but he affects the game even beyond that data. And one of the big things that Tyler Smith and company were talking about post-game was that for all the warts and maybe the devil on the shoulder that we talked about with Pickens last week, everyone was saying that he was the guy in the huddle. He was the constant voice saying, just keep fighting, just keep going, just keep getting it done. Next play, next play, next play. So, you start seeing it all come together. We're week to week. We're game to game. Any game we could be a breakout away for this guy.
Yeah. And I think that goes to the coaching staff as well. Like, I think they had to sit down with George Pickens, like, dude, we're going to support you and we're going to love you and we're going to get you the football, but we can't have these kinds of breakdowns. You have to switch from this is totally acceptable to this is 100% not acceptable. Like, there's a switch in all of our brains. We don't cuss around our grandparents, or we don't cuss around our parents. We don't cuss around our kids. There is a switch. The human brain is very capable of it, George. And we need you to find the switch that says, under no circumstances am I going to be fighting with the opposition during the game. At the end of plays, I'm just giving the ball to the ref and running back to the huddle. And I thought he showed tremendous focus a couple of times where maybe the DB thought, I got to get up to fight George Pickens every time he runs a route at me. As soon as the whistle blows, it's go time. And he was like, nope. I'm not taking the bait, and this was a tremendous step in the direction of getting George Pickens the bag at the end of the year. Let's have 15 more like that.
Yeah, and maybe it's something too where when you see another guy like the Giants losing their damn minds, all those penalties and all there should have probably been another one, the way they were enforcing stuff with the cell phone cleat and all that. When you see another guy on another team losing his mind and the coach losing his mind, and then the two of them going at it, and you look across and you go, man, is that what it looks like when I go crazy? Like, you get a little bit of that mirrored reflect. And then I also think that, when you see CD,
that was the craziest start of a game I've ever seen. Like, even crazier than Jalen Carter spitting on somebody is Giants starting left tackle unable to do anything without committing a penalty. That was wild.
Yeah. And then, we talked about Guyton's Muhammad Ali left hook last week. That one that he took yesterday was crazy, and especially with everything else that was building up, and the way that we go through. I don't want to say growing up, right? It's still hard to think about these guys, some of them being 24 years old. We've been a pro for 3 or 4 years. You're still so young in your maturation process as a man, right? And then you get around someone like Dak. How much does that help accelerate that? You get a running buddy like CD. How much does that help accelerate that? And so making plays, we've talked about, feed the beast, and then maybe the devil doesn't come out. But at the same time, when you're celebrating other people making plays and you're making plays for them, because you saw him taking the top off at almost every one of the balls where CD is coming over and making a catch, whether he's open or in traffic, it's any of that exists because Pickens is taking someone way out of the play. It's the layered contextual way that Shoddy is designing routes is way more impressive when George Pickens is going hard every play.
Indeed. Okay. On the concern side, how worried would you be about this defense right now?
I told you Wan'Dale Robinson was going to be a problem, dude.
You did.
I told you, man. Kentucky in the house.
And he was. And we talked about how a lot of like no name or anonymous defensive backs were going to have to step up for the Cowboys when you're talking about Reddy Stewart and Zion Childress and Triquez. There's a lot of stuff here on the Cowboys 2 deep that would leave you concerned going in, but of bigger concern afterwards, it was Diggs, Elam, Wilson, and Hooker oftentimes on the TV screen looking at each other afterwards like, what gives? Like, these are guys you're going to depend on. And it can't be that bad. Obviously, you're not going to face Russell Wilson against Wan'Dale Robinson and LSU man Malik Neighbors in the same game again. But there's going to be a lot of big plays, and I feel like teams have to be looking at this film right now and adding deep balls against the Cowboys, especially if nothing else is working big. You're in a situation. Shoot, it looked like easy money on at least 2 of those where the Giants defenders are way behind the next Cowboy. Like, how can you not do a better job keeping things in front of you or having an understanding in zone concepts when, he vacates my zone, you're going to take over? It looked like complete confusion.
Yeah. And some of it is man to man, some of his personnel and KYP. Jack Sanborn cannot be a hole player. Jack Sanborn cannot run the seam with anybody. And that's just, if you're going to ask him to do that, then you're asking to get beat. Like, you have to be able to say, these are the guys that can play downhill. And these are the guys that can turn and run. And unfortunately, they're limited. They're limited because of injuries. They're limited because it's early in the season, and they're not still in football shape all the way, where you're going to be seeing guys being able to play VO2 max to the max, later in the season because they're just queued up and ready to go. And you're rotating guys trying to find fits. You're rotating guys trying to see, who's got it and maybe who doesn't. And I think that was the thing that I did notice. Obviously, Diggs is getting beat, but the one thing that's really easy to celebrate about him is he competes his ass off. And if he's not at 100% and he's getting beat by Malik Neighbors, who might be the best receiver in the NFL right now, like he was trying to peanut punch that ball out on the spectacular. He got beat, and then he caught up, and then he fought to the very end. And it's like when his body does catch all the way up with his technique and with his savvy and with his experience, he looks like he's on his way to being a very good player once again. And what you like to see is that never give up mentality, where like, I might give up one, but I'm gonna make it hell all the way to the ground.
Yeah. I think the discouraging thing there is Kaiir Elam has just not been able to follow up how good he was in off season and then training camp. I mean, for the first 2 weeks of training camp, he was getting a pick almost every practice. He was definitely getting PBUs right and left. And what we saw, I think, is the debilitating effects of when Deron Bland's not available, and he's going to get healthy eventually.
You got to also, excuse me, when you go through some of the metrics and some of the counting stuff comes out, you look at when he's playing zone versus when he's playing man, and what they're asking him to do. And I think some of that is part of the process where you're trying to say, can somebody play off, or are they just a press man cover guy? And right now it seems like when Elam is asked to do anything other than turn and run, he's just thinking way too much. So you might have to, when you get Bland back and when you get Diggs ramped up, you might have to say, hey, in this week or in this matchup, if Elam's gonna play, and he's gonna play a lot, in order for him to play well, we need to put him on wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2, and we just say, where he goes, you go, and then we build the rest of the game plan around that.
Okay, on the encouraging side, I mean, Brandon Aubrey, what a freaking weapon. He might end up being the best kicker in NFL history. Right now, he's the best deep threat.
It's him and Boswell are the two, right, at the top.
Yeah, him and Boswell, probably the all-pro kickers from the AFC and the NFC, and we'll just have to see how this thing goes. Like right now, Aubrey is trending, I think, to usurp him or exceed him a little bit because he's got the range out to 70. Like Shoddy said, before the 64-yarder, they were thinking around 70. They were going to give Aubrey a shot, but then they got...
Didn't the next-gen stats say that it would have been good from 80?
My God, I didn't see that. I didn't see that.
Map up.
That's just wild. But the dude's an absolute machine. He already saved your season. I think paying him $7 or $8 million a year actually makes sense, because there might be multiple games when you're looking at the end of the year like, hey, we could have been 7-10, but we're actually 10-7 because Brandon Aubrey's our kicker.
One of the things that it gives you can't even measure this, right? But just like the subjective part of all the contextual data points is the confidence that you have knowing that you need 1 or 2 first downs and you're in scoring position. That at the end of the game, if the team, even if the team pins you back on your 1 yard line, you get to midfield, you got a shot to go home with this dub. I mean, it's a different deal because it allows you to not have to press and not have to take risks, take shots. You can take the first available and get down and keep it moving. And I'd be remiss if one of the things I meant to say at the beginning of the show is it just me when we start talking about dudes who are coming into their own and dudes who are going into the next level and all the things there are to be celebratory about coming out of this dub? Is it just me, or did you hear Dak going, here we go, a whole bunch again this week?
Oh, yeah, he's going, here we go. I think he's trying to – Shoddy's more about not removing here we go. He's more about changing up the how and the why and the timing of when you get to that here we go and what happens next. Not just a consistent cadence that the defense can anticipate.
I had a little bit of PTSD and the reason I bring it up now is because I was just thinking about how automatic Aubrey is, and it made me think about, if we're going to talk about things that are automatic, are we worried about the snap count the same way we're good with our kicker? I had that thought. I made that note.
Well, I wanted to bring up, what you had said about getting to midfield. I think one of the concerns has to be special teams, because these NFL rules have set it up to where they're not going to give you the ball at the 30 anymore. Now it's the 35. So
Right.
they're not kicking it into the end zone, and you have to do a better job with your starting field position than they have consistently done throughout 2 games. And, I'm looking over here at Nick Sorensen with 12 years experience. It's given me a little bit of FOMO on Bones Fostel, who was an issue around here as well with his flipping fake punts and believing in Zerline for way too long. But now that Zerline's out of the mix and you don't have Mike McCarthy like asleep at the wheel on the sidelines, you have Shoddy, who I think is going to do a better job maintaining the authority of the head coach, not giving the special teams coordinator so much. I want to bring him back. I think he's in Tennessee right now. If the Titans fail and decide to move on from him, I'm looking at special teams right now. You need better returns, because you got to get at least to the 25, man. We got to do a better job here with the. I wouldn't be surprised if the Cowboys are bottom 5 right now in starting field position.
Where are you on the new kickoff rules? Like, I know.
I love it. It hurts the Cowboys, but I love it. It's bringing excitement back, and I think there's a huge opportunity. There is a massive opportunity to do a lot better than what the Cowboys are doing. We should be in for at least 2 touchdowns from Kevontae Turpin for how good he is.
Did you watch the Texas A&M Notre Dame game at all over the weekend?
Highlights.
Did you see? So maybe you missed then. Before the ending, like Notre Dame goes in and scores, and the backup kicker or the backup quarterback drops the snap, so they're only up 6 instead of 7, and A&M returned the kick. And it got called back for holding, and then they ultimately go down and score and win the game, right? So I'm watching this on Saturday, and I don't get to watch it nearly as much Saturday as I used to, or feel the same way about it now that the players are getting paid, because it's basically, minor leagues. SEC could probably win year to year some leagues in the NFL. Some of the divisions are fighting for that number 1 spot. But when you watch it on Saturday, I always get confused about how the pros have to do all this different stuff, but we're just good with the college kids kicking off and no CTE. You get CTE and you get CTE. Like, I hate it because I think it's gimmicky. I think it makes me feel like I'm watching not the NFL. It makes me feel like I'm watching arena ball, Canadian ball. It just isn't what it's always been. And I get, change, evolve or die, adapt or die, and all the things that go with it. My question is, when you talk about Bones, Fossil, and some of the great special teams guys, like, what do you want to see them do? Like, you want to see them come in and be like the trick reverses, or like, are we just not one-on-one, hat on a hat, man to man, like, good enough to just spring Turpin with all that speed? So we need a little bit of trick 'em and dick 'em.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of ways to do it, but I look at what Shanahan and McVay, and, Ben Johnson have done for the running game, and I think there's a level of precision and game plan that's going to allow, your guys to find space a little bit better, and you really got to drill down. We're so early in this new thing, and we're seeing in the NFL every year how things are constantly evolving and taking advantage of, what the opposition is expecting or not expecting, or building for, not building for. And, the early returns are not good here. So I would like trick plays if you're down a couple of touchdowns and your offense isn't working. But more than that, I would like fundamentally to believe that you're giving your guys the specifics that a Clayton Adams is with the running game, that through 2 weeks, we have a tremendous amount of more success. And a guy like Javonte Williams that the NFL had left for dead actually looks like one of the best 15 runners in the league right now. So yeah. I'm a big believer in coaching, and the details equate to success rate. And, the proof's in the pudding here with your return game.
It's going to be interesting to see, because, we have in the video that we put out right before the season about, what starts in California, echoes in Lombardi, with, ends with Turpin making the spin move and taking it to the house. And he's just so damn fast and slippery and fun to watch with the ball in his hand. So
powerful.
I always wonder, what the evolution of this thing becomes. Like, I know you've talked about the 2 quarterback, some of the high school stuff on Friday Night Lights in Texas, and different things that smaller schools have to do to compete with bigger schools, or 7-man football or 8-man football or whatever.
Hook and ladder shouldn't be the end. It should be the beginning.
Yes.
Of a new offensive system.
Yes. Where you go through some of this stuff where, it used to be you had a left return or a right return, right? Because they were trying to coffin corner it. And then if you had a return on to the opposite side and you could get that wall set up, that's where the magic really was. Like when I was at Kentucky, we had Derek Abney, who broke like every record that existed at the time. And it was unbelievable to watch the precision of, you're talking about backup linebackers, right? Like backup linemen, backup tight ends, like some teams, you talk about how you have to play starters, and a lot of times stars, like how you make the 53-man roster and how you're part of the guys who are up on a Sunday is because your willingness to play and excel at special teams, and guys who make careers out of that. Like I wonder if the evolution of this thing is something where we see, some of these guys like a Mingo who maybe struggles as a receiver, and you can't eat your way into a tight end and you're never going to be an inline guy. Is he somebody who becomes, because of his, height, weight, speed stuff, where you can use him in some devastating fashion to either create room for others or to be part of some of the hook and ladder type stuff, so that, like, if we're going to do this thing and it's going to be a little bit gimmicky, I don't think you need much of a push to take it all the way.
All right. Speaking of encouraging or concern, let's go to the pass rush, because they did not get home nearly enough against Russell Wilson. I want to talk about here some Pro Football Focus scores. Obviously, the film's got to line up with this, and we'll do maybe a look at the film here tonight and tomorrow as the All-22 becomes available. But just the immediate stuff, James Houston, your number one graded defender, 15 snaps. Solomon Thomas, number 2, 28 snaps. Then Kenny Clark, number 3. So 3 guys that weren't on the Cowboys last year are stepping in. Like, I think the fact that they drafted edges in 3 out of 4 years in the second round for the Cowboys, and you're not getting anything more from them, I think, sucks. But what can happen is internally, guys that get drafted are favored. Guys that have been with us are favored, and guys from the outside kind of got to prove themselves. And I think through 2 weeks, James Houston and Solomon Thomas have appeared to be some of the more active, some of the more penetrating and dominant defensive players that you've had. And I think Houston has a combined 21 snaps now, and Solomon Thomas pretty much a 50% player. Kenny Clark, awesome. You brought this guy in, it's giving you a backbone, but we need more of the first 2 guys that I mentioned, because your Sam Williams, your Ezra Rakus, and your Nealons just aren't taking that next step where they can be down and down out productive.
They signed Clowney, right?
Yes, they did.
We're going to get another piece to this puzzle. What's going to be interesting about this in the coming weeks is, as he's getting ramped up and the rotation continues to shape up, is like, more of James Houston seems like a good idea. How do you find the sweet spot for him? Because you talk about Solly being like a 50% player. That's part of why he's playing so well. Like, he's not expected to be out there playing 60, 65, 70 snaps like the whole game. Like, you see some of these war daddy types, and that stuff wears on you, not just over the course of the game, but over the course of a season, especially when you get into the compacted parts of it where you're playing, 3-4 games in 10, 12 days. So as this stuff shapes out, the reason we were so big on the Clowney signing isn't just any week-to-week number, but about how over the course of 18 weeks, you give yourself the best possible chance to have more guys in the green.
Yeah, and I think Clowney's going to help you a little bit on the pass rush. He's going to help you a lot in your run defense. And, now I think encouraging, you look at what the Cowboys did against New York's running game, 21 carries for 84 yards. They really couldn't move the chains with their run game against you. That's what you would expect against New York. It was really just the moon balls and the 450 yards from Russell Wilson that broke your back. But you add Clowney to Clark, Osa, and then I assume it's going to be Nealon on your left defensive end spot. That should be very good against the run defense. And hey, salute encouraging to Kenneth Murray Jr., who had a significantly better game in week 2 than he did in week 1.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see with those guys how that stuff. You saw Eberflus talking a lot to guys as they were coming off the field. And I think one of the things they were struggling with yesterday was like, how do you adjust in game when you're just getting beat? And one of the biggest things that can alleviate some of that stuff is, as much as we talk about Diggs getting fully up to speed, Bland having availability, Revel coming back, etc., is if those guys up front, especially on a night like last night, where just getting in Russ's way, getting in his face, does so much damage. You saw it on the last pick, right, where You don't have to even necessarily win and certainly even get home, but it just to disrupt by taking another man. And as the great Russ Grimm said at his Hall of Fame speech, there's nothing greater in the world than taking a man and moving him from point A to point B against his will. And that's not just an offensive line to defensive line thing. It works the other way too, right? As much as you want to see Kenny Clark rip through, win off, his get-offs were better than Micah Parsons, is what some of the people were talking about coming out of week one about how explosive he looked and how he still had plenty left in the tank. But what you want to see down to down, week to week, all season long is that just that consistent pocket push to get the quarterback off his spot and force, disrupt the rhythm of a throw. Maybe something that's open early gets taken away just because he gets stepped on. And then maybe something that comes open late or that could be a one-on-one type thing becomes a hero ball situation and Russ makes a mistake.
Yeah, they were doing a heck of a job, and they should have had Russell Wilson a few more times, but he escaped and made a few plays with his legs as we were concerned with. Okay, speaking of concerns, let's go back to that side. Shoddy and Dak and the clock management. I think they get credit for how the first half ended against Philadelphia. That was outstanding. But there in the first half, they tried to play with the clock a couple of times, and on the fourth down where it looked like they were going to do the fake hard count and actually run the play, they were a half second late there, and the refs didn't let them off the hook because of how they were trying to manipulate the defense and catch them off guard and maybe hike it a quarter second after it hit zero, to try to catch the defense thinking, oh, that was a fake hard count. And then at the end of half, Dak throws short of the sticks. You can't get out. Time runs out. You could actually argue that those two plays took a significant amount of value off the board for them. And maybe they could have got out of this thing in regulation if they'd been a little bit more clean there and a little less cute.
Yeah, it's funny too. Like we've been talking about a number of teams across the league, and when it's nut cutting time and it's inches or one or even two, I saw a number that was going around. It said something like the Eagles ran the tush push on 11 or 12% of their plays, their total plays for the game. And
this week would have made me vote to ban that thing, by the way. I can't believe the owners let that thing slide in the offseason.
It's not that much different than a quarterback sneak or some of the other jumbo stuff. My problem with it is if you're going to allow it to be run as is, then you have to police it. It's literally a penalty every time. The center is offsides. Yesterday, the guards were leaving early. It's a ridiculous thing the way they're not policing it. But what is equally ridiculous about it is sometimes the Eagles will come out and run it on 3rd and 2 because if they just get a yard or a yard and a half, they're just going to run it again on 4th and 1 or 4th and inches. And now that we've seen that Javonte Williams has something left, and let's get one thing straight: he was never the breakaway guy. He was never in a world like a Turpin or a CeeDee Lamb or a George Pickens lives in terms of just how he's wound and how he was ever going to play. His money was going to be made and his bread was going to be buttered between the tackles, vision, and contact balance. And now that he trusts that knee and he can get close to every ounce of traits related talent that he has, let's trust him, or let that be the place. You want to talk about getting creative, like we were talking about on the new kickoff rules. Show me some reverse pivot fullback dive with your boy Lipke, right? Show me some fun stuff with both backs in the backfield, and go back to Dak's Mississippi State days. I'm not asking him to run the option, but I'm just saying do some fun ball handling stuff and bring both of these guys into play. And oh, by the way, paging Jaden Blue. Not because we want to bang him up there in between the tackles, but when you do go fullback dive, when you do go ISO, then you fake that and you pitch it outside and it's one man versus another to the corner.
Yeah, that'll be a fun topic later in the week as we start to look forward to the Bears game. How much are we going to get Jaden Blue involved? I have one more encouraged or concerned to get to. Do want to mention, How About Wow brought to you by Bet Online, up to $250 in free bets. If you want to jump in there, you can do Monday Night Football tonight. Chargers, a 3.5-point road favorite in Las Vegas against the Raiders. But link in the description if you need an online sports book, especially in the great state of Texas. Bet Online is a lifesaver. So encouraging or concern is the motion on offense, and it's something we've been begging for over a decade, really, since McVay and the Rams, brought it back in vogue so much. In the first half against the Eagles, lots of motion, lots of offense. Second half, not very much motion. The opposite was true in the Cowboys Week 2 matchup with the Giants. Not a lot of motion, stagnant offense, looked like a Mike McCarthy party had broken back out. And then in the second half, here comes the motion, here comes the point, here comes the success rate. I don't know why they would not have more consistent motion yet. All the analytics say it significantly increases your likelihood of having a successful play. I could imagine they don't want to show it all constantly. Maybe they think going static is the changeup. They don't want the defense to get a beat on their motion, so they want to have it available to get the ultimate surprise. But I think through 2 games, how your offense is grinding to a halt without it, I don't care who doesn't want it. Maybe Dak Prescott doesn't want it. Maybe the offensive line coach doesn't want it. Sorry, overruled. The stats say until they start stopping us with motion, we're not going to go away from it again, New Bear.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, because the biggest thing that it does is it changes the math for the defense, and they have to, even if they just have to slide or step a foot or two, it can change their gap responsibility, and it also makes them think. And in that heartbeat between them trying to communicate, them trying to reset, and that brain synapse having to fire, like a lot can happen. And if you're just a step behind, I mean, everybody here is like the 1% of the 1%. And the big thing the motion does is it forces the defense to have to move and change your responsibility, and then it forces them to communicate. I think you see it a lot. That's one of the big things is, if you can't, Edelman talks about it a lot on his podcast about how why he was able to go, step in and play corner, or why some of these guys who are maybe smaller or slower are able to play 10 or 15 years. And it's because they can talk and they can process instantly. When you go back and you look at like Ray Lewis and Peyton Manning waiting to see who was going to make that final check as the play clock goes 15, 10, 9, 8, right, all the way down. And then you have to communicate that stuff, because very few people are Ed Reed who can just know and instinctively go do, and then maybe even go do the wrong thing, but make it right because he's so damn gifted.
All right. We'll be back soon with a look at what is what from the All-22. You can follow us on social, mostly Twitter, at How About Wow, and TikTok, How About Wow Cowboys. We have short videos throughout the week as well whenever there's breaking news to update you on. Until next time, for New Bear, I'm Dawson. And how about Wow Cowboys?